the button and go.
Alrighty. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. How are you all doing today? Welcome to another meetup, the .NET Africa meetup. Today will be interesting for all you guests and newcomers. If this is your very first time, thanks for joining us. If this is not your first time, you of course know what to do. Subscribe so you don't miss all the goodies that we'll be sharing over to you. And I said today will be very much interesting because we got an exciting guest on the show. Well, guest, family, well, part of the .NET Foundation. I don't really know how to put that. She's an interesting guest. So wait till that time comes when we introduce her to you. We're talking all about .NET today. Of course, it's a .NET meetup. And but before we actually introduce our guest on the show today, this event is sponsored by the .NET Foundation, and we would like to tell you all about the .NET Foundation and all the good things that has been done at the foundation. So I'll have Abisoye Falabi do an introduction of the .NET Foundation. Abisoye, over to you.
Okay, yes. Okay, yeah, my name is Abise Falabi. I'm one of the .NET organizers for the community in Lagos, Nigeria. I'm just talking about .NET Foundation. The .NET Foundation is more focused around enabling different .NET communities around the world. And this is one of the initiatives of supporting virtual events, running virtual events, and helping local communities coming up on stage in global platform, which is one of what we are currently benefiting. And this event is fully sponsored by the .NET Foundation. And of course, we have a host of communities, different communities within Africa that come up with this. So thank you all very much for joining. And I'm sure that if you visit the .NET Foundation website, you should be able to see local .NET communities within your country or within your region. Okay, thank you very much. So I'll take it over back to Dara. Over back to you.
All right, thank you. Thanks everyone for coming in. Sam, off you go.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever, wherever you find yourself. I know it's I'm a bit hyper. Yes, I just had some local delicacy, and very pumped and high for today's session. So today, to do us the honor, is none but our own Maria Naggaga. She's actually a senior program manager at Microsoft. Currently focused on Visual Studio .NET, ASP.NET, and .NET Interactive, which is actually what we're going to be talking about today. Fun fact about her, if you don't know, she is the Afro styler and also does a couple of things in art. So without much ado, it's my singular honor on behalf of the entire Africa to welcome Maria Naggaga. Maria, you're welcome to this today's episode of the stream. Take it away from me.
Thank you so much, Sam. And just to add on, I am so excited to be here. I am a Ugandan girl, I'm a Kampala girl living in New York. So any single time you get to see a group of your people, you're excited. If you are a Ugandan on this thing, please holla so I know that you're there. Fun fact about me today, I ate chapati for breakfast. All right, with an egg rolled inside. So in Uganda, we call that a Rolex, right? So I'm very excited to be here. As Sam mentioned, I work on the .NET team. I specifically own parts of ASP.NET, like if you've heard about minimal APIs, which is a lightweight way to build APIs in .NET without controllers. I work on that with David Fowler and Stefan Holter. I work on SPA, I work on MVC, I work on basically a lot of the ASP.NET platform, and I'm also the co-creator of .NET Interactive that spun out of Try.net. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to go through a couple of slides, and then we can jump right to the demo. Okay. Let me know if you can see my screen. Just give me a verbal confirmation.
Yeah, we can see it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, so let's start with some quick slides. All right. Here we go. All right. So what is .NET Interactive? And so before I jump into what .NET Interactive is, I want to give you a bit of history of where we came from. So .NET Interactive, the origins of this experience was to build a friction-free way for people to learn and experiment with .NET in the browser. This was something that I pitched to my corporate vice president, Julia Linson, when I had just joined the .NET team. I said, in order for us to compete and with languages like Go and JavaScript and Scala and Kotlin, we needed to provide an on-ramp in the browser that just worked seamlessly. And since then, we have grown to support a wide range of things. Like .NET Interactive has built both online and offline experiences for writing code, specifically for documentation and learning. We've brought data science tooling to the .NET ecosystem with .NET Interactive notebooks. And now we also support things like interactive coding styles for citizen developers. So if you watched Scott Hanselman's keynote last year, he had this part of his demo where he was writing code in Teams and was being executed in Teams. That was all done using the .NET Interactive engine. So our humble beginning started in May 2017, where we built try.net. By May 2017, we were on Docs, and every single page that had this on docs.microsoft.com had a 20% higher customer satisfaction rate than anything else. Then we had to scale back on try.net because we're using it using ACI. And those of you who don't know what ACI, it's an Azure Container Instance. And what this does is that it spins up containers in the back end really, really fast. So it makes sure that when a customer would come onto the page, the code was executed in a self-isolated container. The problem with that solution is that it got really expensive, and we once got a bill of $90,000, and I will never forget when that bill came in because I was in vacation with my parents in Mombasa, and my boss called me and said, I don't want to alarm you, but the bill was $90,000, so you need to figure out how to make this cheaper. So what we decided to do was, at that time, Blazor had just come out, and we went to the Blazor team and just like, hey, you're able to run C# in the browser. What if we become one of your partners and we use it on top of our engine? So try.net moved from ACI to Blazor execution in the browser. And we also had the try.net global tool. And the idea of that was, we had this huge block where people were learning online, but how do they transition offline? So we had this idea of making interactive markdown, and the code was executed from an existing application. So to think about it, imagine you had Markdown, like you all have probably written Markdown. You have these snippets of code that do absolutely nothing. So what we wanted to make was those snippets of code that you run that you usually showcase your examples in, runnable. So we created the try.net global tool for that. Now, when everybody saw this, they were just like, this looks like a notebook. And at the very same time, .NET was making a play for Spark.NET and big data in the data science space. So they looked at my team and said, you need to go and build a notebook for .NET. And we shipped in November of 2019 with F# and C# support. Now, 2020 is when we really started thinking about new stuff for .NET Interactive. We said, why can't it be more multi-language? Why can't it use more than just .NET languages? What if someone wants to do visualization, JavaScript, all in a single notebook? We need to be able to support that. So we pushed it through, and we have C#, PowerShell, JavaScript, and HTML support. And we also work natively in VS Code. So when we think about where we're going with this, we're thinking about how do we create richer visualizations? How do we work across education? How do we gamify this experience? And with that being said, what I'm going to do right now is jump right into some demos. So we're going to stop these slides and show you what I'm talking about. Okay. All right. So let's start with getting started with .NET Interactive. So I'm just going to pull up a browser here. I'm just going to pull you guys to the side. All right. There we have it. Okay. So to get started with .NET Interactive today, the first thing that you have to do is go to our GitHub repo. You can learn a lot about it. You can install the extension. One of the things that I wanted to make sure I landed today as well was we also work not only in VS Code, but we also work in Jupyter. So this is an example of the Jupyter experience. And I'm going to relaunch this because we timed out of the container. So I'm going to click on this. It will launch in Binder. This is a container running on Google Cloud. Binder, what it does is that it looks at your repo and it spins up a notebook right in the browser. No need to install things like Anaconda and Jupyter or even Python. You can just run it straight in the browser.
Excuse, please share your screen again.
Oh, sorry. Did you lose me? Okay. Okay, just confirmation. Can my screen be seen now?
Yep.
Yeah, we see it now.
Okay. All right. So sorry about that. Okay, so let's start. So this is the Jupyter experience. If you go onto our repo, and I'll just pull that up again because I'm pretty sure you lost that, and it's GitHub, like .NET/interactive. Let's wait for that to spin up. Okay, there we go. And you click on Launch My Binder. This will open up a Jupyter experience. And we have a couple of samples here. Let me pick on C#. Okay. And you can start running these in the browser. So I can run that. It will give me an output in a bit. Yep. There it is. Right? So this is a classic Jupyter experience. But I want to show you how to use it in VS Code. Now, for the Jupyter experience, one of the huge pieces of feedback that we got when we initially introduced our notebooks was, I'm a .NET developer. In order for me to just use a .NET notebook, as a .NET developer, I had to install Anaconda, I had to install all the Jupyter tools, I had to install Python, and all you wanted to use was a .NET notebook. Why did you have to carry all this stuff with you? So we got a lot of feedback that that was too much of a on-ramp for developers to just get started, specifically developers who just wanted to use .NET notebooks. So we introduced a .NET Interactive extension, and this makes it really easy. All you have to do is install this extension and you're ready to go, and you can start building your very first notebook. So let's go over to what notebooks look like in VS. Now, first thing that we wanted to make sure was that we created a bunch of methods and formatters that worked the way people expected them to display. So for example, this will just, you can define a variable, they're doing var x equals hello, and then you can display it and it will return a result. You didn't even have to write a console.writeLine, it just displays it. And this always happens in my demos. Whenever, like I promise that when I run this earlier, it was fast like as lightning. Okay, so you have your console, you have your display, but one thing that's also really good is you get Intellisense. So I can do console, WriteLine, and you get the Intellisense. This isn't something that you'd be able to get in the Jupyter ecosystem. So not only was it easier to on-ramp, it's also easier to just write code in the ways that you expect it. The next thing was formatting text. So for example, here I have an array, right, that is going to display an enumerable. I'm going to run this. What I really like about this is you get a table. It's an array. You want to display your content in a certain format. So we're able to look at it and say, hey, that should be a table. Over here, I have a dictionary, and I'll get a table for that. So there's this effortless experience on how you display things. So table, and table, like, so you get the gist of, like, we wanted to be able to support these kind of experiences. Another thing that I wanted to point out as well that kept on coming up when we did customer studies, when we were venturing into this notebook space was, hey, C# notebooks, F# notebooks, PowerShell notebooks, absolutely wonderful. But the beauty of notebooks is the visualization aspect. It is a great storytelling tool. So how can we enable people to use the formats that they like? without having to write a wrapper. So over here, I'm going to add the formatting extension. This is Pocket View. You run it, and you get HTML output. Cool. But why do I have to do it in C#? Let's try something else. I'm going to switch this cell to HTML. I'm going to copy this. Run it, and you have your results. Now, there are very few places that enable people to actually switch from one language to the other in a single notebook, but we support that in .NET Interactive today. And I've always found this a really cool feature for us. Here we can also switch between JavaScript. So let's look at some plotting where it gets really interesting. So charts are a huge part of building notebooks today. So over here, I'm going to use a .NET library called Xplot. So this is the F# equivalent of Plotly, which is one of the most popular libraries out there. Okay, I've almost installed it. And if there are any questions, please let me know. I can take questions during the presentation as well. Just put this to the side just in case some come up in the chat. Okay, cool. All right, so this package is taking a while to install, so I'll just jump to the next example and then come back. Let's see if it's installed. Come on. What is a demo without hiccups? It's not a real demo, right? Like now at least you know that I'm doing this in real time. I'm not recording a video. This is all real stuff. Okay, I'm just going to switch to the next one. Let me actually stop this cell. Okay, let's switch to the next one. Okay, all right. This is where stuff gets interesting. One of the things that I mentioned was the ability to mix languages together, right? So over here, I am defining a variable A. So let's run this. And this is all in C#. So you can see this is C# right over here. Okay, let's do this. Is this still running? Okay. I'm going to do this. This is a common bug that tends to happen. And I'm going to move you up. Yep. That's interesting. All right. Let me try this. Okay, that makes sense. Going to move this and then add it below here. Okay. So we're having, I've counted a bug here. Thank you for your patience. All right. Yep. It's not installing this package and I need to figure out why. Okay. If all else fails, I'll pull up the slides again and see what's happening here. Okay. All right, just give me a moment. I'm going to restart my Visual Studio Code. Okay, let's see if this works. Okay, let me go back to PowerPoint and I'll walk through some experiences that I was hoping to demo while I restart Visual Studio Code. It's fun. Okay. Got it.
So, Maria,
Yeah.
whilst you do that, I mean, this is a personal question though. What was one of the challenging times when we were building .NET Interactive?
The most challenging time when I was building .NET Interactive would have to be figuring out how we're going to create winning features in an ecosystem that already existed. So the most challenging thing was figuring out how we were going to do better. And what we realized was for .NET Interactive to win, in quotes, because we haven't won this space at all, but for .NET Interactive to be useful in this place, we had to enable people to use the languages that they needed for the job. And what since this is executed, I want to describe what that means. Over here, I have a variable of A, right? It's declared in C#. Now, let's say I want to display this, right? This is a JavaScript cell. Like, I think all of you are kind of familiar with JavaScript. This is JavaScript. And I want to visualize that enumerable, that thing. So I'm going to run this cell, right? This is a JavaScript cell. Let's run it. Okay, let's try Shift Enter. Okay, run it. Another way to run cells is Shift Enter. Okay, so I've done that. And what I'm doing in this cell is, if you can see, can you all see this line of code where it says let update D3 rendering, grab the interactive C# and get the variable name. So I am literally grabbing the variable of A that we defined in C# and injecting it into JavaScript. I wish I could see your reactions, because this is a point where people are like, what's happening? Okay, so as it's running. Any other questions while we're waiting for this to run?
Yes, the question from Guy that says, can you run notebooks running multiple C# code blocks or files at the same time, or just one? For example, if you're calling an API, then one code calls another one. And can you see other namespaces when you're running the notebooks?
Yes. So can you run multiple C# notebook codes? Okay, can you, let me, yes. Can you run notebooks running multiple C# code blocks? Yes, so can you have multiple C# code blocks in a single notebook at the same time and run them at the same time? Absolutely. Now, in notebooks, every single block of code can be contained, or it can run can run independently or all together. And then, for example, like an API call one, then calling code from yes, you can absolutely do that as well. Any other questions? Wow. This happens every single time. Whenever you run a notebook while sharing your screen, this always happens. Okay. Any other questions? And I'll switch to PowerPoint. It won't be as exciting, but hopefully you'll get the experience.
No other questions for now.
Okay, so let's just switch to PowerPoint, and I have all of these demos recorded. I was hoping to show them to you, but I have recordings of them. So I'll just walk through the recordings, and hopefully we'll come back, we'll restart VS Code, and everything will work. If this doesn't work, I'm guaranteed that there is a experience that will 100% work. And that will be fun. Okay. Thank you so much for your patience. I promise you this will be, don't save any of this. Okay. And let's open up PowerPoint. Okay.
Okay, Maria, while PowerPoint loads up, there's a question from Wolf, right? That says, apart from notebooks, which other cool applications of .NET Interactive are you aware of?
Okay, so I can actually switch over to that right now because I think this would be pretty cool. So .NET Interactive, let's look at the slideshow. I hope you can all see my slides. So this is .NET Interactive. This is the execution engine. And .NET Interactive, you can see, supports multiple languages: C#, F#, PowerShell, SQL, and different languages that we can possibly support through a proxy kernel. Now, we also support multiple different protocols. So Standard IO, 0MQ, which is a Jupyter protocol, and HTTP. Now, if you look at these different applications on this side, these are all the different scenarios that .NET Interactive can support. We work in VS Code, which I was trying to show you before. We're working on bringing Visual Studio notebooks into Visual Studio, Azure Synapse, Azure Notebooks, Azure Data Studio, Jupyter, Jupyter Lab, Interact, Teams, where you can write code in Teams and then be executed, Try.net, which is the online experience of writing code and executing in the browser. And this one is a .NET Interactive command line REPL. So I'm going to show you that right now. So I installed a global tool. This is very much an experiment. Let me zoom in here. Tell me if someone can give me a verbal of like, this is close enough, I would appreciate it. Does that look good?
I think it looks good.
Great. Right. So I installed a tool called the .NET REPL. I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to bring it into a REPL mode. So similar to Python, the way you can write Python, and then it gets you into a REPL mode, you can do this with .NET Interactive as well. So the .NET Interactive REPL will give you the same experience. Man, I'm going to say my computer is be shaming me now. Like I'm looking at it now, it's like it's frozen on everything. But if I fail to do this, this is supposed to be the finale of the presentation, but let's see. Okay. All right. We will go ahead and look at PowerPoint while we go through these. Okay.
Okay. While we wait for there's a question from Guy again. Hello, Guy. It says notebook seems so useful for teaching, but how do you share that notebook with others? And can you publish a created notebook maybe to a blog or HTML page or maybe even a Markdown file, or have some search engine so you can share it?
Okay. So you can, okay. So let me start with notebooks are incredibly great for teaching. And yes, you can actually share your notebook. We have a prototype where you can open a notebook from a URL. So you can imagine embedding your notebook that points to a GitHub repo that has your IPYNB files, your Jupyter, your notebook files. You click on that notebook, and if you have the VS Code extension installed, what you can do is then share it with somebody. They click on it, and it automatically opens that notebook, and they can use it on their file. Now, the next thing is like, can you publish and create notebooks to a blog, HTML, and Markdown? We have looked at that in the past. Now, the only issue with that is where would the code execution actually happen? So we'd have to create like a WASM kernel that would be published with notebooks that would enable people to actually execute the code in the browser. And we're working on that. We are working on it so you can actually like embed it into an Azure static web app, or just like with a command line, transfer your command line tool, transfer your code from a Markdown file with a code block to an actual HTML page. And yes, Eric, the WASM, yes, we're really working hard at that, and we hope to have it done by next year. Oh yeah, so that's a really good question. Would .NET Interactive replace Python at some point? I don't know, right? Like that's an interesting question. What we are looking into right now is, because .NET Interactive is multi-language, we are looking at bringing Python support into .NET Interactive notebooks. So that's what we're working on here. So this is working right now, but I wanted to show you something. So let's write a console.writeLine. But this is an experience that is powered. Did I spell this badly? Oh,
Capital L.
Capital L. As you can tell, I am very used to Intellisense. Okay, there we go, right? So that what this is, it is the notebook format inside of a console application, which I think is pretty cool. Yes. So Jose asked, can you use ml.net in .NET Interactive? You absolutely can use ml.net in .NET Interactive. And if you go to the, I think if you go to our repo, you will actually see ML notebooks. Let me confirm that with you right now. Let's look at it together. Okay, so there we go. Let's zoom into this. Zoom up that font so you can see. So in our samples, you'll see a housing ML notebook, and that one shows you how to get started with ML and notebooks. Okay. Yeah. So this notebook, Housing ML, that will show you how to get started with ML notebooks. All right. Any other questions? And then I'll try to see how VS Code is doing, which is not doing well. Okay.
Yes, there's a question from Jose.
Okay.
Asking, can we use SkySharp Stack in .NET Interactive?
You can use SciSharp Stack in .NET Interactive. You can.
Okay. And then the next one is from Eric asking, will this .NET Interactive potentially be embeddable into a desktop application like Dash console mode?
Oh, could be. It's like these are like, Eric, you want that feature? Just open an issue and we'll look into it. But we have used .NET Interactive in Windows desktop applications. So for example, there is a sample here where it is being used in WPF. So yeah, that is totally doable. Okay. Okay, Guy has a question. Microsoft should create an extension which will allow you to access MS Docs. Sorry, half of it is cut. Could somebody read it out to me?
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Microsoft should create a VS Code extension that allows you to access MS Docs website in the inbuilt web view inside Visual Studio Code. That way you don't have to leave your data straight from the docs.
Oh, yeah. So that is something that we've heard a lot of being a docs extension that runs the snippets in the browser. And Bill Wagner was actually working on an experiment where he is converting some of the notebooks, some of the samples and docs into notebooks where someone can actually just click on them. It will open with a notebook and you can do your entire experience inside of VS Code. So yeah, that's a very good example and a scenario that we're looking at. Okay, let me go through this. Let me just try to salvage this with the slides. Okay, so let's look at some of these experiences. So one of the things that I mentioned was .NET Interactive Notebooks works perfectly in both Jupyter and Interact. And Interact is one of the most popular experiences as well. They also build a lot of the really cool visualizations that you see in Jupyter Notebooks today. And then .NET Interactive in VS Code has really good IntelliSense, which would give you richer tooling experiences and also enables you not to use Python as well. So that's a good example. So let's walk through some of these features real quick. And I really wanted to show you these in a demo. So we support C#, F#, PowerShell, JavaScript, HTML, SQL, and we also are looking to add Custo support as well. Now, why did we do this? We wanted the ability to mix a single language, like mix languages in a single notebook. Currently, when people want to, let's say, do something in Python and then do something in SQL and then do something in JavaScript, what they're tending to do is to create packages for each one of those notebooks and then try to load them into a single notebook. That sounds like a lot of work. Or they're creating wrappers on top of languages, on top of libraries, so as to embed them into different languages. And we just didn't want to do that. So what we said from the get-go, after talking to thousands is too much, like 100 customers, I believe, we realized for .NET to be really winning in this space, we needed to introduce C#, PowerShell, and JavaScript and SQL in a single notebook. So what does this look like? Let's look at the multi-language experience. Not only can you switch languages between a cell, right? You can also switch languages from one cell to the other, right? And in this example, what you're seeing here is we have a C#, HTML, and JavaScript cell. And we're also taking the X variable that was defined in C# and then being able to access it and visualize it in HTML and JavaScript. And the cool thing, if you look at this part of the demo right now, you can not only switch languages between cells, you can actually use multiple languages in a single cell. So you can think about this being really good for scripting or really good for developing your DevOps pipelines. The next thing that I think is pretty cool is that when you use a SQL experience, for example, SQL notebooks, you pull it in as an extension. And not only that, you also get code completion of your schema. So even though you don't know what your tables look like, you don't have to have it open in SQL Server, you can start typing out this code and you're just like, okay, what different columns and tables exist within my database? And I find this a really cool feature. You're also able to quickly scaffold a DB context, which allows you to use all these cool things like link. And the need for multiple notebooks isn't something that is relatively new. We didn't just wake up in the morning and say, this would be a cool thing to do. Places like Databricks have used multiple languages and rich visualizations to enable their customers to have a really good experience. So let's look at the visualization support that we have in .NET Interactive Notebooks. So this is what I wanted to show you. In this specific notebook, what we're doing is that we have a variable that we've defined in C#. Now we switch to a JavaScript cell. And because you're able to import require.js, that enables you to use things like D3.js, you can use the visualization libraries of your choice, the visualizations of your choice, but you can easily just copy and paste it from the sample, reference the C# variable, and then you begin to get rich visualizations like this, natively using JavaScript and also using C# or F# or PowerShell and all the languages that you love. Now, another thing that I thought was cool is the ability to have richer visualizations so you can explore data. This is the Interact Data Explorer. Over here, someone's just select star from my table. You run it and you get this visualization. There was no extra code required. This is all baked into .NET Interactive because we're leveraging places like Interact and Sundance as well. This is a Sundance experience. The Sundance is a visualization library out of Microsoft Research. They have rich visualization. Over here, what we're doing is that we're going to run a couple of cells. We're going to share a CSV. We also have this concept of being able to grab a CSV and display it. It's displayed in a table. We have our data frames. And then we're going to run it using Sundance. And what you're seeing here once that executes is even a richer visualization where you can define what your columns look like. And you can create scatter plots and bar charts and tree maps. And this is really cool because you can then send it to someone else, right? You can literally share this with another person, and with the option to open from a URL, they just click on it and they have it on their local machine. Right? And then another group of people who are being really huge from .NET Interactive is Reactor. And they've created these really cool, rich visualization experiences for real-time data. So if you go to the Reactor website today and you look at their documentation, all their docs are using .NET Interactive. So here, look at this beautiful visualization that's streaming real-time data based on a thermometer into your application. Okay, let's see what else I have here. We also talked about education and .NET Interactive for education. On May 20th, Scott Hanselman wrote a blog post where we introduced the .NET coding pack. And what this allows students is to have this self-contained experience where they get an installer and they get a group of tutorials within a single installer. So this is what it would look like. So you click on the download .NET Interactive and .NET extension, you get this cool coding pack, and then students begin to write code immediately within with .NET Interactive notebooks, which I think is pretty cool. It's self-contained documentation. And finally, another thing that we've been doing is weird stuff. We just like to do these really cool experiments. Now, in this experiment specifically, is how do we bring robotics and education, especially in this time when there's a lot of kids going to school virtually, and they want to work together, and they might not all have the same resources. So in this video, what we have is teams over here on the site, and you're writing code, you execute it, and it allows for you to move a bot in real time. So students, you can imagine students hovering together in a classroom and being able to execute code and run it and actually see a device moving, all because it's powered by .NET Interactive. So I'll stop sharing.
Oh, that is powerful. I mean, the fact that you could write code in, teams, and it's controlling a bot somewhere else. I mean, that's a game changer.
It's a game changer. I think it could be really cool. All right, so let's take this time for questions because while I try to see if I can get VS Code running. Okay, so can notebooks interact with the internet? Yes. Yeah. Okay, guys, that's a really good example and something I was hoping to show today. And I'll send you a video of this as well. So what people have actually been using notebooks for, and it's been a game changer for a lot of people, especially in admin, is that they're using notebooks to write scripts that are able to configure people's Azure accounts or configure things like Azure AD. So you can really see notebooks being as a way for you to easily configure services like that. So yeah, that's a huge example. Any other questions?
Yes, there's another question from Rizwan asking, can you share .NET Interactive live with your colleagues, like live share in VS 2019?
You can't share it in VS 2019 because we don't work in Visual Studio yet. You can use it with live share in VS Code. But there is an experiment happening right now with a group with the ML team where they're building .NET notebooks in VS. What other questions do we have?
I think the other bit of, someone, IE, asking, well, kind of scared. This is my first time learning .NET, but I'm scared already with all the codes I'm seeing. Help!
Okay. Are you please? Oh, I'm so sorry. Like this was scary. Okay. .NET. isn't scary, but it is a lot. I understand that, right? For sure. And I think Dara and Sam and everyone else on the call has seen this experience. But what's kind of beautiful with .NET notebooks is that it allows you to focus on things like the syntax and the code before worrying about the ceremony that comes with building a .NET application. Now, I'd say take baby steps. Start with just C#. There's actually a really good book. Not C#, it is The Beginner Guide to C#. It's really good. It will go through these samples. It will explain the layers of it. I think they even have a free version somewhere on the internet. I'll try to find it and I'll share it with the organizers and hopefully they can get it to you soon. And then slowly go into the web. And I'm going to tell you things that I'm working on right now, for example, like minimal APIs. You can build a web app in .NET with 3 lines of code.
Yeah.
Like 3 lines of code and a single file.
What?
Minimal APIs.
Yeah, but Maria, this is more of a personal question before we go to Josh Silver's question.
Okay.
Especially coming from the question about the lines of code are a bit intimidating.
Mhm.
Do you think, or is there by chance anything going on, just like the way we have Scratch, to have kind of like visual or block programming for .NET and C#? Is this something that's already in the works, or is this something you've thought about? Because then, if we're looking at bringing maybe people from middle school, or kids, or even people who have that fear for lines of code to get started, is this something like that going on?
So it's something that we definitely have thought about, and it's been on our roadmap for Try.net that became .NET Interactive forever. Like, how do we make the Swift playground equivalent?
Exactly. Yeah.
For people, and it's on the horizon. I don't know how far out it is, but it's something that we're looking at, because what I've always felt is missing sometimes with Scratch is how do you export this code from blocking to actual like classes and methods and all those things. And I think we have the ability right now with .NET to do things like that, right? Because we've done it before. Like WinForms was basically block programming,
Yeah.
right? So how do we create it in a more more user-friendly, more visually appealing experience? And we it's definitely on the plate. It's something that we want to do, but business.
Because that'll be interesting again to bridge the gap. Because not everybody really is, especially those getting started, comfortable with writing lots of code, and the several use cases. And I think I want to add to what Maria said, especially for .NET, especially .NET and C#, with the Universal Windows platform coming up, you can, if you know C#, you can build for web, you can build for mobile, you can build for Xbox,
Yep.
and actually you can build for HoloLens. So pretty much you can build for the entire ecosystem. So it's a very powerful, framework and language to learn. Just to add to, all the cool and awesome things that, Maria has shown today.
Okay.
Yeah, just there's a question from Wilfred in the comments about security. So he's saying, if I run a notebook written by someone else, is it allowed to do anything on my system without permission?
So I was just in a meeting about this. The things that we are doing about security is that we log everything. I know that isn't like the best answer, right? But we try to log every single aspect that happens on your machine. So if anything happens that is bad, we catch it. Another thing, that if you open something from a URL, and I wanted to show that in the sample, like we have this example, like you click on the link and it says open in a notebook, open in VS Code, and it launches. Before you're actually able to open the notebook, it says, are you sure you want to trust this? Right? And I know that isn't we should do better. And like, how do we think about security when something happens on someone's local machine? Because once it's happening on your machine, a lot of like the things that there's really nothing we can do. Like if it's on the web, we can secure you, but when it's on your machine, that's an issue.
Okay.
Okay.
There's another one. from Guy. Do you ever communicate with the GitHub Codespaces team that allows you to code in the browser? I've been on the waiting list for over a year already.
Guy, you and me both, and I work here. Like I work at Microsoft, and I work in the team, in the organization that builds this, and I've been waiting on that wait list for a year. But just to let you know, .NET Interactive Notebooks works in GitHub Codespaces today. So if you have access to Codespaces today, if you're one of those lucky people, please send me a screenshot and just say, hey, I'm one of the lucky ones. Oh no! So you can get access to, it will work the same way it works in the locally, and would have probably been better for this demo because it seems like it didn't work for me. But yes, it works.
Maybe we'll share a demo at some point of it working in Codespaces. You know, since some of us,
some of you have it.
Yes. So Maria, we are mindful of your time. I don't know if the moderators have any other questions, but whilst we wait for the, maybe questions to come in, and also be mindful of your time, what would be your last words? What will be your last word? Actually, there's a question. So from Wise. So is it possible to run in some sort of a silo?
I'm not sure what that means, but I think if you're talking about, is it like, can you run .NET Interactive in an isolated environment? Absolutely, right? You can put it into a container and then it's fine. But I don't know if that answers your question at all.
Yeah. Okay, there's another question. So it says, actually a question we mixed. It says, how secure is storing secrets and passwords in the notebooks if you use it for Azure Admin PowerShell tasks?
It's not secure at all. I never check it into GitHub. You can also use .NET user secrets, which I believe will encrypt that for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've also shared a list, like there's a gist that I shared, and the .NET Foundation just put it up there. And this will show everything that on getting started. It will show you all the blog posts. It will show you where the samples are. It will also show you the .NET Interactive REPL that I was trying to show as well. But yeah, so like, please use that for samples. And thank you so much for joining. I don't know, like I feel like whenever I do, like this is my third presentation this week, the third one always has these issues, and it's like, why? And like I woke up like at 7 a.m. this morning, it's a Saturday, I sat down, I was running all the get samples, I was just like, it works. That's why I was so confident. I was like, I don't even need to show the deck, I'll just go right to the samples. And I'm just like,
I think we just need to refactor the sacrifice to the demo gods.
Yeah.
Like, I forgot to do it because it always happens when you're sharing VS Code in sharing your screen. It's always a mess, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
I do not know why. Okay.
All right. Before I hand it back to the host, I also want to take the opportunity to say a big shout out to the Accra.net user group for making this possible. Also, thank you, Maria. And I think I want to use this platform to, humbly ask you to send a message. We're actually in talks with Scott to have him on another meetup. So probably you could just, ping him for us. But thank you all for joining. If you have any specific, content or, tool you want us to talk about or bring the likes of Maria again or other people, please let us know. We'll be sending out some feedback for you to send. But with that, Dara, it's over to you to close us with any last remarks you have.
All right. Okay. Thanks very much, Maria, for the presentation. The comments coming in from YouTube are spectacular. I think the one that comes out to me most is from Jonathan, because I'm a trainer also, and I teach people C# almost every week. And it's like, this is the new way of teaching C#. So you don't need to install, pretty much just get that .NET code pack, and then you're off on your way to go coding. With .NET Interactives and all that kind of thing. It's just really, really Super awesome. And I'll say thank you for your time and thanks everyone for coming in. So I think we can release Maria now to go have a next recording so we don't buck too much of your time. And there's a lot of thank yous from Kelly, from Eric, from Ayi, from Wilfred, from Jose, from Rizwan. Pretty much everybody watching right now is just saying thank you and thank you and thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much. And I hope to be on again. Please have me back so I can actually make a sacrifice to the demo gods and then it will work this time.
Definitely.
Definitely. All right. Thanks very much. Yeah. So I think it's time now to get creative with the rest of the time we got together now. So I've been coding everyone. I know Sam does a lot of coding stuff. So Sam, what are you coding next with .NET?
Well, to be very honest, I actually spent the whole of last night messing around with this little thing here, and to be very honest, I actually missed two important meetings yesterday because I was actually on the HoloLens. Like I was just so immersed in it that I didn't even realize that there was there was like meetings. But yeah, so for me, it's been exploring how to use C# and Unity and the gaming engine to build some interaction for the HoloLens and play around with it. So that's kind of like what I've been working on. So if anyone is interested in seeing how that, they should follow the channel.
Yeah, and I think there's a question, not for Maria, but pretty much for us here. Like, does this hold every week or every Saturday? This .NET Accra meetup.
So since I'm the only Accra person here on the show, so usually we meet the last Saturday of every month. So we have this virtual session the last Saturday of every month. This is a way for us to help kind of like coordinate with all our other, brothers from other countries to also have theirs at specific times so that we can all join. But for the Accra.net, it's always the last Saturday of the month.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And if you need to join any of the meetups, I think you can go to meetup.com. There's .NET Lagos, .NET Accra.
Yeah.
I think we can send the link.
Yeah, definitely. There's Accra, there's Lagos, there's Cameroon,
there's Togo.
I think. There's
we also have
Togo.
Togo, yes.
Yeah.
There's Cameroon.
Cameroon.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. Yeah. And actually, as you realize, we're trying to put all our efforts together. So you can see Nigeria, Ghana, Cameroon, Togo, all around, because we feel that it's time to build, the ecosystem on the continent. So if you know a friend or you're interested, just get people. Join your local chapter. We are working on connecting all the chapters together in sessions like this. So just make sure you join a local chapter. There's always that. And if you are in a country where there isn't a local chapter, just connect with us. We'll help you start one. If you're a student and you want to start a connect with us, we'll help you start one, and we'll connect you to the .NET Foundation to get some sponsorship as well. So let the .NET vibe, spread across the continent. Go ye and make for us fishers of .NET.
I guess.
Yeah, I think that's very.
I guess we should add the links to the different communities in the comment section. Or in the description. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, that's it.
So the link is coming right up.
Yeah, links coming up, and then also for further continuous learning, make sure you check out the Microsoft Learn. There are a lot of learning parts for C# for .NET and all that. So also check up. So I don't know if you can get that link also up. We are time now, but if you can get that link up before we say adios, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the rest of our viewers.
Okay, and I think pretty much so for folks who are a little bit scared of learning C#, I want to tell you, well, most of us have been writing C# for a couple of years now, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, and I must say to you, it's awesome. The only thing you need to get started is actually just write your first hello world.
Yeah.
As long as you write that first hello world, yeah, docs are right there to help you. The community is great. If you get stuck, I can literally tell you to ping Scott Hanselman on Twitter. It will answer your
response.
Yeah. So that's how awesome it is. So you never get stuck, to be honest. And you can tweet at any of us online. If we can't answer your question, we'll get someone If not in the community, someone at Microsoft to answer your question at any point in time whatsoever. And that is why we have
That's
this
why-
community.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. I think we are time. So Dara, the rest of the team, thank you very much. This has been an awesome Saturday. Go out there, be safe. COVID is still real. Spread the love, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell another friend. Let's be safe and catch you in the next episode next month. Stay safe.
All right, people.
Bye.
Bye. Have a very great weekend.